And if you like the video or any other content on the channel, feel free to subscribe. This video is going to be an overview of the Auric Champions detachment. I felt after the Dataslate in June, the Auric Champions feel like a whole new detachment. Even though it was only the detachment rule change from the Auric Champions itself, the change to how Shield Captain's Strategic Mastery works, you reduce any stratagem by the cost of 1 CP. It doesn't matter if it's a battle tactic or not, but we can't use it on stratagems that has already been used this phase anymore. This opens up a whole bunch of new possibilities with the Auric Champions. Solo characters would be a lot more rare in lists now. There's still room for certain characters as solo units though. We don't have a huge pool of units to pull from, but I feel there are some clear-cut winners for this detachment, which we'll cover in this video. The devastating wounds changed to mortal wounds will not be as big of an upgrade as with the shield host or the Talons of the Emperor detachment, just because there's not as many stratagems or ways to mitigate devastating or mortal wounds with the Auric Champions detachment. The new and improved detachment rule called Assemblage of Might. At the start of your command phase, select one unit from your opponent's army until the start of your next command phase. Each time a model in Adeptus Custodes character unit from your army makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll. That is in ranged or melee. And let's go over the Assemblage of Might a little bit. The change to include character units instead of just character models to get the +1 to wound against the Assemblage of Might target is a much needed change. This will make target priority and bouncing around the Assemblage of Might target with a stratagem very important to playing this detachment as well. The +1 to wound with a certain profile like the Auric Custodians is going to be terrifying for the opponent. You get the +1 to wound in range and combat, and that does make quite a bit of difference with the Auric Custodians. It makes Kyria Draxus and her attached custodian unit even more deadly shooting and then charging into the Assemblage of Might target, because Draxus is not a custodian character, but when you attach her to a custodian unit, it makes a character unit, so the character unit would actually get the +1 to wound, just Draxus wouldn't get any benefit to any of the stratagems. And next we'll go over the Auric Champions enhancements. You have Blade Imperator for 25 points. Each time the bear's unit ends a charge move, select one enemy unit within engagement range of the bear and roll a d6. On a 4+, the enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds once per battle. After the bear's unit ends a charge move, all enemy units within 6 inches of the bear must take a battle shock test. And this could be fun on a Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle jet bike to get a few extra wounds through in the charge phase. At 25 points though, I can't see it being used other than for casual games. Then we have Inspirational Exemplar, and this is 10 points. The bear has a leadership of 5+, and once per battle at the start of any phase, you can select one friendly Adeptus Custodes unit that is battle shocked, and within 12 inches of the bear, that unit is no longer battle shocked. With the buff to Tyranids, this may have gone from a points filler to an actual option if we do not have the points for some of our more expensive options. It will not come into play every game, but I still rank this above the Blade Imperator. The last two enhancements for Auric Champions is Veiled Blade, and this one is 25 points and 2 to the attack characteristics of the bear's melee weapon. And once per battle at the start of any command phase, triple the bear's OC until the end of the turn. And this is a great enhancement on a Blade Champion or a Shield Captain with a Castellan Axe. Attempting to get the most of our damage 3 weapons, triple the objective control happens at the start of the command phase, allowing us to use it to steal an objective before scoring points. And the next one is Martial Philosopher. For 30 points, the bear's unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back, and that's all game. And then once per battle, when an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9 inches of the bearer, if the unit is not within engagement range of 1 or more units, it can make a normal move of up to 6. And this is the best enhancement in the detachment. I say it's even better now since bringing the big blocks of infantry to attach to the characters is not as feels bad as the Codex release, getting the most out of units attacking the Assemblage of Might target. All game, a fallback, shoot and charge for a big character unit plus a once per game 6-inch reactive move. You can't beat that. The next thing I want to go over is the stratagems. The The stratagems are much more important now since they can be used with the shield captain to reduce the CP cost by 1. Before, it was only if there was a battle tactic, which none of these were battle tactics, so it opens up a lot more possibilities in our army now. The first stratagem we have is Superhuman Reserves, and this is 2 CP, and this is any phase just after an Adeptus Custodes Warlord model from your army has used an ability on its datasheet or an enhancement that says it can only be used once per battle. And the effect is your model can use its once per battle ability one additional time during this battle. It can't be used in the same phase, so you have to wait until after that phase before you can use this ability again, and you can only use this stratagem once per battle. And this is a stratagem we probably won't use a lot, and it might be worth looking at for a rewrite as well. The fact that we have to use this as we use our once per game ability, and then hope to not get killed before we can use that ability again, since you do have to wait until the next phase before you could use your ability again. This still would be the best on Trajan Valoris to reset his moment shackle, but for 2 CP, that is steep, especially now that the shield captains, all 3 variants, your regular, your Loras, your shield captain, are just overall better now with the change to the strategic mastery, so you can use it on any stratagem to reduce it by 1. The next stratagem up, Shoulder the Mantle. Epic Deed, 1 CP, in your movement phase before the reinforcement step, 1 Adeptus Custodes character model from your army that is not leading a unit. Select 1 friendly unit, excluding battle shocked and other attached units. It has to be a model that could lead that unit described in its datasheet. Your model attaches to that unit as a leader. Change the unit's starting strength accordingly. One of the weakest stratagems in the detachment, even with the stratagem modifier changes, this will not be used any more than it was before the June Dataslate. The Codex release, it could be used in the movement phase without the before the reinforcement step phrase, so we could use it to make some shorter deep strike charge tricks. Now I can't really see too many uses where we would save the 1 CP to use this or even use it for free. It's a very situational stratagem. The next stratagem is the worst one in the Auric Champions detachment, the Vigil on Ending. It's 2 CP in the fight phase, 1 Adeptus Custodes character model from your army that was destroyed and has not fought this phase. You can use this stratagem on that unit even though it was destroyed. Do not remove your destroyed model from play. The destroyed model can fight after the attacking unit has finished making its attacks, and then remove it from play. Fight on death. And for 2 CP, for fight on death for a single Custodes character model is not worth it. Even for 1 CP, if you use strategic mastery on it to reduce it by 1, still probably isn't worth it. Maybe if you really need to make sure something is dead, for 1 CP for 1 character to fight on death, it's probably not worth it. I think the stratagem could be changed to include the entire unit, but maybe on a 3+ or a 4+, something like that, so it's not just a guaranteed if you charge into me then I'm just going to fight on death and kill you back. Right now, it's just not that good. The next stratagem I want to talk about is Emperor's Auspice. For 1 CP, your opponent's shooting or the fight phase just after an enemy has selected its targets. 1 Adeptus Custodes character unit from your army that was selected as a target for 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Till the end of the phase, character models, not your unit, character models in your unit have the 4 Feel No Pain ability. The change to stratagem modifiers makes this stratagem even better. This is a 4 Feel No Pain to every kind of damage, regular damage, or mortal wounds. I have used this on a shield captain on the jet bike to great effect, keeping them alive much longer than they should be. Great to use when you have a character model that's going to be taking a lot of attack and damage this turn. It's a shame only the character model gets the 4 Feel No Pain, but it still can be very useful on your solo characters. These next 2 stratagems are the bread and the butter and what will make this detachment work. So the first one we have is Earning a Name for 1 CP, and we use this in the fight phase. Up to 2 Adeptus Custodes character units from your army that have not been selected to fight this phase until the end of the phase. Each time a character model in either of your units makes an attack that targets a monster or vehicle unit, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. This is a great stratagem to help our characters hit those tougher vehicle or monster units quite a bit harder. We can select lethal hits or sustain depending on the weapon profile. Something like the Blade Champion wants as many attacks as possible to fish for those 6s for the devastating wounds for 3 damage. Being able to use this for 0 CP now with the Shield Captain's Strategic Mastery is a huge increase to the usefulness of Shield Captains in the Auric Champions detachment. Before the Dataslate, it had to be used on a battle tactic stratagem, which there was none none in this detachment. The fact that we can select up to 2 units for 1 CP or a potential 0 CP makes this a strong stratagem when fighting a lot of monster or vehicle units. And the last stratagem we have to talk about is Slayer of Champions, and I'm very curious how this one is going to fit into our game plan going on into this new season of Custodes. Any phase, one Adeptus Custodes character unit from your army that has just destroyed the unit you target at the start of your command phase as the target of your Assemblage of Might ability. The effect is select 1 unit on the battlefield until the start of your next command phase each time an Adeptus Custodes character model from your army makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll. In addition, if the destroyed unit was a character unit, gain 1 CP. And for the stratagem, it is a shame that it's only the Custodes character models get the +1 to wound benefit, because if you notice, it's not spreading the Assemblage of Might, it's just spreading the old Assemblage of Might. So your whole Custodes character unit won't get the +1 to wound, it's almost just spreading around the old +1 to wound with your character models. It's still useful, and I still want to play around with it and see if I can figure out some ways to make this work. I still think we could use this to great effect in the combat phase by charging 2 different enemy units, activate and kill the Assemblage of Might target, then use this stratagem to put the +1 to wound with characters onto the second charged unit, just so we can get a little extra damage out of that second character. But ideally, we want to use this in the combat phase just to get as many attacks with that +1 to wound as we can with the character model. You could also use it in the shooting phase. It could have some merit depending on the situation. Something you really need to shoot to death with some of your stuff, and just because you couldn't charge it, you use Assemblage of Might on that. If you do manage to get a kill, and then maybe there's a unit that you weren't quite as threatened by that you do still want to charge into, you put the +1 to wound on that with your characters if there's a character in that unit that you're going to charge it with. It's a little confusing just because now it's almost 2 different Assemblage of Mights we have. We have one with Slayer of Champions that we can put on something, and then we have the new good one that's just every command phase. Now that Assemblage of Might is much more deadly with the entire character unit getting the +1 to wound, I think we will have a lot more opportunity to figure out where the stratagem fits in our game plans, because we should be able to reliably kill the Assemblage of Might targets a lot easier, getting access to the stratagem a lot more during games. Now I'll go through a few units that I do believe is a good choice for the Auric Champions detachment. We have the Alaris Shield Captain leading a Alaris Terminators unit. This unit is very tough and hits like a truck. We will have the ability to reduce cost of stratagems with this unit. The Terminator Slayer of Tyrants ability allows the unit to re-roll wounds against characters, vehicles, or monster units, and with Assemblage of Might adding the +1 to wound roll and the shooting and combat against that target, this unit is going to be terrifying, along with Golden Light, to give them a once per game go back in reserves at the end of the opponent's turn. Next, we have the Blade Champion leading Custodian Wardens. I think this detachment might make Wardens the most deadly. Shield Host could be better, but Assemblage of Might helps us get around the Warden's lack of reroll wounds with more reliable wounds with the +1 to wound. Paired with a Blade Champion to give a once per game advance in charge for the unit with an all game reroll charges, the Blade Champion will also help add even more punch to that Warden's unit. Next, we have the Venerable Land Raider. We'll still need some anti-tank in this list, which the Custodes Grav tanks do provide better long-range firepower, but the Land Raider provides something more than its 4 Godhammer last cannons hitting on 2s, a taxi for a big unit of Alaris Terminators. This will help us get around the slow movement speed of 5 inches for the Terminators, or even the 6 inches for the Wardens if you want to put the Wardens inside one of these Land Raiders instead. And then last, for a solo unit, we still have the Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle Jet Bike. With the access to a 4-up Feel No Pain stratagem for 1 CP or 0 CP with the Strategic Mastery ability, solo Dawn Eagle Shield Captains can be very difficult to kill. They give us a fast moving unit that does not need the Assemblage of Might for melee, since his weapon already has Lance on it, so +1 to wound on the charge. A great unit to help contest or steal objectives. Also a great infantry unit and character hunter. Great infantry and unit hunter with the speed and the melee profile it has, and it also has a once per game fallback or normal movement if the Shield Captain has fought in melee combat this phase, so you could use this to strike into an enemy, and at the end of the turn, once you're done the combat, you can move it 12 inches away. I do believe the Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle is still a good choice for a solo unit, just to run around doing actions and such. Let's end this with some final thoughts. All these changes has made this detachment look so much more fun and deadly. It still feels weird having stratagems that only work on the Custodes character models. I get the fluff reason, but just makes them feel a bit underpowered or underused, even with the stratagem modifier changes. I will have an in-depth overview of an Auric Champions list I'm going to use and play around with. I think that's going to come out Wednesday. It's nice to see we didn't have to wait too long to see some positive changes for our codex. Anything I've missed or questions you may have, throw them in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by.